How you doing, folks? Nick here again, and we're going to redo the previous video that I've done before of how to change your car stereo. Again, we are in my 2005 Daihatsu Copen, and again the radio is going to take standard ISO mount, or ISO connectors, and a standard DIN mount. As you can see, hopefully in the video, it looks as if you can. This is a double DIN unit that I can use. I don't need to replace the fascia plate, which is quite common on Fords and Toyotas. You will need to replace the fascia plate, or at least change it so your radio doesn't stick out half a mile. So pretty much like the previous video, the way to access the fascia plate itself is, you're not going to be able to see this, but you open the glove box, you feel in with your hand until you can feel the point, and push it out. Again, in the previous video I used a spoon as my trim removal tool. I've actually gone out and bought some trim removal tools. So the tool you will need is, this is the end of the trim removal tool I'm going to be using. It has nice rounded edges. I'm also might possibly use this one as well. Both of these are made of very soft plastic, so they shouldn't damage the fascia plate. And you'll also need a crosshead screwdriver or Phillips screwdriver. Again, if you don't want to go out and pay for a trim removal tool, you can use a teaspoon with rounded edges, or any sort of, like a knife or a fork with a rounded base. So that way you're not going to cut into things accidentally if you put a bit too much force, and you won't need to replace your fascia if you make a complete and utter balls of it. So we'll work through. I think we're going to use, I'm not going to use the stabby one, it's very pointy. We'll use this lad here and pop off the trim. I'm going to use the other end of it because it's a bit narrower. Get that fit in. Might need to use the pointy lad. So pop out all the clips, left to right. If it would like to pop out, I might have to resort to using a spoon again. Or using the very pointy one. Try the very pointy one, say. Ah. That's a bit useless. And a bit of a waste of money. Oh well, we'll continue on with it anyway. There we go. Keeps wanting to pop in, so there we go. Give it a bit of play. Down, popped out the middle ones, and now we'll pop out the two bottom ones if they would like to pop out. Oh, that didn't sound good. Again, apologies, I have an incredibly dirty cold that's been around for far too long, like an unwanted guest. Come out. There we go. So the radio and the top of the clock is held in with 4 screws. One here, you're not going to see the one here. You're probably actually not going to be able to see any of the screws. I'm not sure if you can. One on the left, or the right, sorry, top right, top bottom. So again, screwdriver, unscrew everything, and put the screws into the ashtray, so that way you keep them safe. So in the previous video I said that this radio worked perfectly fine. In actuality I lied. I wanted to make sure that I didn't know if the radio actually worked or not, so I wired everything in, tried everything out and it didn't work. So this radio doesn't have a fuse in the back of it, and I reckon that's probably what caused it. So pulling out the radio, and the Daihatsu open, you have this, there's a wire here, and this wire connects into the clock for the power. So you need to remove that first. Now, even though your car is probably not going to be a Daihatsu Copen, you should be very gentle when you're pulling stuff out, just in case you have some weird wires in the way. Really should have brought that spoon with me. Oh well. So, out she pops. And this grey wire is the aerial. Give it a tug on the base. That's what she said. It pops out. Ow. And the ISO connectors here. Let's see if I can just about see it in the camera. Yeah, there we go. So these wires here are your standard ISO connectors. Again, the Copen has normal ISO connectors. You don't need any special adapters. So pop out, pop out. That was incredibly easy. 2 screws holding it in, this side and this side. And again, in the back, there is no fuse. You have your aerial and your 2 ISOs. Again, they can only fit in one way. It's not possible for you to fit the wrong connector into the wrong hole because of the little grooves here and here. So you don't need to worry about making a complete nutter hames of it while you're doing it. So unscrew. And unscrew. I know you're probably not going to be able to see a big chunk of what I'm doing, but it's relatively straightforward. I'll put a link to the previous video in the doobly-doo down the bottom. This stereo was the original one that came with the car. Daihatsu, back when they were making the car, decided to use a Clarion aftermarket unit, which is, to call it crap was a bit, well, no, it is crap. CD only, no real tweakables that you can mess around with and do MP3s. But that said, the cars from 2005, radios back then just didn't have MP3s. They were radio and a CD player. Or if you were really old school, you'd have a tape deck. I do kind of miss tape decks on cars because you can plug your iPod directly into them using that little magic tape adapter. But the new cars with CD players don't. That screw's not going to go in. I'm fairly sure there's one of these holes that the screws don't go in. In the previous video, this was actually the stereo I took out, so I'm putting it back in. It's a Kenwood. It does MP3 CDs. It doesn't do MP3s by a USB pen drive or an SD card. You put all your MP3 files onto a CD and stick it in. So you get 700-ish, somewhere between 700 and 800 megs of MP3s per CD. Fit in. There's also a considerable number of extra connectors, like a mute button, a mute wire, and I have no idea what antenna connection. So mute and antenna connection. I don't know, maybe that's to power the antenna itself. You know, in some of the cars they have the fancy power antennas, which are a bit pointless, really, if you're going to hide it. No, but I think it's a bit pointless to try to hide it. The little lugs fit into the holes. They fit in there and there. Most of the harnesses, it's pretty much the only place you can put it in. It should be the only place that logically makes sense to you to be able to mount the little lugs. So screwed in. There's one on this side, 2 on the other side. Let's see if the screw will fit in, but if memory serves me right, this one never was able to fit in. Yeah, it's not going to fit in. So, now it comes to wiring it up. We have a nice long wiring harness on this. The downside is the aerial is directly attached in, so there's not enough play really in the aerial. So the first thing to do is, well, first off, check the fuse to make sure it's okay. I've already done that. This is a 10 amp fuse. Most car stereos have fuses in the back of them, unless they're incredibly crap. And in that case, don't buy it. So, ISO wiring harness, ISO connectors. Does it fit? Yes. Right first time. Plug her in, plug her in. Now comes the fun part. This needs to be over on the left hand side because that's where my hole is. That's what she said. Again, stick it in. And then I'm going to put the clock wire over because there's not enough play. I'm not going to bother putting the clock wire in just yet, because the next thing I'm going to do is get my keys into the accessory position. It's getting power. I don't know if you can see it. It's getting power because the light there is flashing. So, get my fascia plate, Kenwood, pop it in, standby. Right, tuner. In case I lost my settings, I don't really mind about that. But it works. So next up, get the clock wired up. Pop. Time comes on 6:38, which is correct. Well, yeah, it is correct. It was 35, but you know, it didn't lose all of its settings, which is quite nice. Try to. It's hitting against something. Must be. Oh, it's the cables. Let's pull them up, hide them. Try to hide them behind. This is the downside if the cables are. Well, not really a downside. It's good that they're long, but you need to just get rid of the slack. And these ones seem to be incredibly fiddly. Get in, you little bugger, you. Yes! Excellent. So, screws. Screw up. In my previous video I said it takes about 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. I'm fairly sure in this case it's going to take me considerably less because this is the third time I've replaced this car stereo. One to replace there was an aftermarket one in the car already. I didn't really like it that much, mainly because it didn't work again. So I tried the original one, which didn't work again. Well, no, not really. The correct pattern was there was an aftermarket one, replaced it with the Kenwood, replaced the Kenwood with the one that you've seen in the previous video, and now because that one doesn't work, obviously, replacing it back with the Kenwood. So if anyone wants 2 broken car stereos, drop me a note. You're more than welcome to have them. Push it back in, and there, job done. It was incredibly quick, incredibly easy, and you've just saved yourself 15, 20 euro. Don't know what it is in pounds, nor do I care. 15, 20 euro in not having to pay a fitter. So, I will see you next time.